I need Affleck on the phone. No, not the duck from the insurance company. I need Ben. I need Ben Affleck on the phone. Ben, thank goodness. Have you seen this Power Rangers movie? I know, it's pretty good. Listen, you know what that movie has that none of our DC properties have? Product placement. There's product placement all over that movie. I swear, Krispy Kreme is even written into the script of that movie. Krispy Kreme is up that movie's ass so much that I swear at one point I saw a donut give the Red Ranger a prostate exam. I know what you're thinking, I know. But listen, this is what I think we need to do with the Batman. We need a page one rewrite of the Batman, and I want Little Debbie all over that movie. I'm going to get Little Debbie on the phone, and I want you to rewrite Batman with Little Debbie worked into the script. I don't care if you have to change batarangs into oatmeal cream pies and the Joker into a diabetic. I want Little Debbie in that movie. Now, if you'll excuse me, I still got to call James Wan and ask him if the Aquaman movie can have Long John Silver's in it. Hey, James, listen. Do you like seafood? That's what I like to hear. I've got a great idea for the Aquaman movie. So Power Rangers is a movie about 5 unique kids who ultimately come together when they find these 5 power coins. And what leads from there is kind of a typical superhero origin story, but what really brings this movie to life is the 5 kids who play the Rangers. When this movie first got announced, I definitely admit I was a little bit cautious because my big fear was that they were going to try to make this movie into something kind of gritty and serious. And I really liked the show as a kid, and you know, even as a kid, I knew it was kind of hokey, it was kind of silly, but that's really what I liked about it. It always reminded me of like those old Toho monster movies, and you know, it took a lot from those old Toho monster movies with like the Megazords and the Zords and the giant monster fights and all that. So, I mean, those movies weren't really meant to be taken seriously either, and you know, besides a select few of them, and it's just, that's kind of what some of the best parts of Power Rangers is like this hokiness and silliness. So when some of the first trailers and posters started coming out, I got a little bit nervous because it seemed to be reassuring me that they were going to try to make this like a darker, gritty movie, way more serious than I thought it should be, and I just didn't know how I felt about it, honestly. Now, for the first 2/3 of the movie, it was definitely more serious than the show, but not in a bad way at all. We were first introduced to all the Rangers when they meet at detention in high school, and it really feels like a teen comedy. There's lots of comedic elements, but it feels something more like, I know like everybody said this, but it feels kind of like Breakfast Club, where there is this element to it where it's like these outcast kids that are, you know, kind of trying to learn to get together, you know, learn to get along. But definitely, the actor that stands out the most is the actor that plays Billy, the Blue Ranger, which in the original show is the nerdy kid, and in this movie he's definitely still the nerdy kid, but maybe for different reasons than you would expect, and I won't spoil it. But I really liked what they chose to do with Billy. Billy is hilarious throughout this whole movie, and he really brings he kind of brings the compassion and warmth to this movie to make you really care about these kids. But one really interesting thing about this movie is how little we actually see the Rangers in their Ranger suits. For the first 2/3 of this movie, you don't actually see the Rangers in their suits. You mostly see them coming together to train and, you know, kind of give the exposition of the movie, but it never feels boring at all. There's always these scenes where they're going back to this mountain, basically, where the Power Rangers lair is, and you'll see them training, you'll see them getting along, you'll see like trying to learn to get together and be friends and how hard it is and stuff. But it sounds, as hokey as it sounds, it actually is really good, like surprisingly good. I think most people that don't even really like Power Rangers that much might see the first 2/3 of this movie and be genuinely surprised. And now where this movie does start to feel a lot like the show is Rita Repulsa, played by Elizabeth Banks. She really went over the top in this movie, and honestly, I really loved it because I like the kind of cheesy part of the show, And while she's not nearly as cheesy as Rita Repulsa in the show, she does ham it up a little bit and kind of, kind of give you that kind of like cheesy villainous feel. And she does a really good job in the movie. She is a little bit more scary in this movie than she was obviously in the show. They do kind of play it up a little bit more adult-like. But she does a really good job in this movie, I feel like. Now this leads to the final act of the movie. I'm not going to spoil any of the final act, but I will say this. If you don't like Power Rangers, you might enjoy the first two-thirds of this movie a lot more than you thought you would. But when it gets to the final act, this could make or break the movie for most people. If you like Power Rangers, I think you're going to like the final act. It really does go back into the old school like cheesiness feel of the show. Once they finally get in their suits and the fighting starts, you feel like you're sitting back on your couch in your living room as a child watching the show. It's not as cheesy as the show, but there's a lot of nods to the show that I won't spoil that are awesome if you're a fan. A lot of things that I really did like about the final act, we see the Zords a lot actually. And while in the show, most of the time they just get in the Zords and immediately turn into the Megazord, they actually spend a lot of time separately as the Zords in this, and there's some pretty awesome kind of action scenes with the different Zords and utilizing them all together, even working together in certain parts. Really cool. One major complaint I kind of had with the final act though was the way the Megazord looked. He did look a little Transformer-y, kind of Megatron-ish looking, which I'm not the biggest fan of those movies, and I just felt like all those individual Zords were so colorful that the Megazord really should have kind of reflected the different colors of the individual Zords. It just would have looked better aesthetically for me. But it didn't take away from the movie as a whole. It's just kind of like a thing that I would dock it for a little bit. Because I felt like, if there are sequels, we are going to have to see that Zord again unless they, they change it. So maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I just didn't particularly like the way that it looked. Ultimately though, I think if you're not a fan of the Power Rangers, you could go to this movie and the first two-thirds of it you're probably really going to like. But that last act really is for the fans. So if you're not a fan of the Power Rangers, I'd say just wait. Maybe see it later, maybe rent it. If you're a fan of Power Rangers, see this movie in theaters because this was one of the most fun experiences I had in a movie recently. Especially seeing it with a lot of fans. There was a lot of cheering, a lot of clapping because it did have a lot of fan-pleasing moments. So for me, I'm going to score this movie kind of high just because I did have so much fun with it and I really did like it. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like it so much, but I really did enjoy this movie. So for me, I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, I think you'll really have a lot of fun with this movie if you do like the Power Rangers, but if you don't, you might want to just to stay away from it. There's other movies out right now that you could see that you'll have fun with. Not to say that you wouldn't like it, but more than likely it's not something that's going to come out and change your mind about the Power Rangers. So guys, that was my review for the Power Rangers movie. Comment below and let me know if you saw it and what you thought of it. I should be doing some more reviews coming up soon, so keep tuned to the channel and subscribe if you haven't and like the video. Thank you.